A US jury has convicted a former British citizen for his role in an Islamic State hostage-taking plot that led to the beheading of American journalists and aid workers. Key points. Shafee Elsheikh was found guilty of conspiracy to commit and lethal hostage-taking. Shafee Elsheikh was found guilty of conspiracy to commit and lethal hostage-taking. He was accused of being part of an IS terrorist cell nicknamed the Beatles because of their British accents. He was accused of being part of an IS terrorist cell nicknamed the Beatles because of their British accents. His lawyer argued that Elsheikh was a simple ISIS fighter and not a key part of the notorious terrorist cell. After a 6-week trial and 4 hours of deliberations, a federal jury in Alexandria, Virginia, found Shafee Elsheikh, 33, guilty on charges including lethal hostage-taking and conspiracy to commit. In convicting Elsheikh on Thursday, the jury concluded that he was part of an Islamic State terrorist cell, nicknamed the Beatles for their British accents, that beheaded American hostages in Iraq and Syria. Some former hostages, released by the Notorious group after protracted negotiations, testified during the trial about the torture they endured. Family members of the deceased victims also testified. The charges against Elsheikh, whose British citizenship was withdrawn in 2018, carry a potential sentence, but US prosecutors have advised British officials they will not seek the penalty. Journalists beheaded on videotape. Shafee Elsheikh and Alexander Cote were taken into US military custody after being captured in 2019. Elsheikh, who was born in Sudan and raised in London, was accused of conspiring to 4 American hostages: James Foley, Stephen Sotloff, Peter Kassig, and Kayla Mueller. Mr. Foley and Mr. Sotloff, both journalists, and Mr. Kassig, an aid worker, were in videotaped beheadings. Ms. Mueller was raped repeatedly by the group's leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, before her in Syria, US officials have said. Another of the cell's members, Alexander Cote, was held in Iraq by the US military before being flown to the US to face trial. Cote pleaded guilty last September to the S of Foley, Sotloff, Mueller, and Kassig. Simple ISIS fighter, not ringleader. UK-raised Elsheikh was not a member of the Beatles cell, his lawyer argued. During opening arguments in the US trial, Elsheikh's lawyer, Ed McMahon, called him a simple ISIS fighter and tried to cast doubt on whether he was one of the Beatles. The captors wore masks and had similar accents, making it difficult for hostages to identify them, he said. It was horrific and senseless. None of that is in dispute, Mr. McMahon said. What is in dispute, and what you must decide, is whether Mr. Elsheikh bears any legal responsibility. ABC.